When GC&CS first moves to Bletchley Park, all the staff are based in the pre-war mansion, but by that point, the management have already started to put up huts in the grounds because they're anticipating a growth in the number of people who'll be working here. And we know from tax records in the archives, the dates of completion of the first 8 huts, 4 of them are built before war actually breaks out. That includes Hut 1, which is built in the centre of a tree-lined avenue, a remnant from the days of the 18th century house Water Hall. And that's actually built in the middle of this avenue so that they can use it as a radio station and hang their aerials from the tops of some of the trees. They cut 4 trees back down to the bare trunks and use them as aerial masts. And then when other huts are built, they're built in line with Hut 1. So Hut 6 and Hut 3 next door line up with it. And the reason the huts are on that alignment is because of the 18th century landscape which is built back then. The exception to this is Hut 8, which, if you look at a plan of the site, you'll notice is skew-if from the other huts. And the reason for that is it's built right up against the boundary fence of the estate as it then stood. Later on, more land is requisitioned and the site's allowed to expand. But in the beginning, the huts are crammed into quite a small area in the far reaches of the government site. This means they have to dig up the pre-war hedge maze, which means we don't have that anymore. Hut 10, 11 and 11A are built right on top of it. And what this forms is a dense complex of huts close together where staff can communicate effectively. Hut 3 and 6 famously have a way of getting messages from one hut to the other involving a wooden bridge essentially between the 2 huts with a tray inside. And the tray is pushed from one hut to the other using a broom handle. And that's only possible because they're so crammed together. These huts are not comfortable places to work. They are quite poorly built, drafty, freezing cold in the winter, warmed by coke stoves which tend to give off fumes and deposit soot on the interiors. In the summer they're too hot. We know how uncomfortable they were because we have evidence that staff at times were pushing documents into gaps in the woodwork to try and keep out the draft, and this is why we have some rare survivals of wartime working papers and code-breaking tools. They're equipped with a hodgepodge of any furniture that could be salvaged from wherever it could be found, from government offices or from civilian homes that people were living in, and they're always overcrowded. The construction of huts simply can't keep up with the number of staff flooding into the site. Now there's so many huts built that it's quite hard to keep track of which is which and how they're numbered, and there's quite an inconsistent numbering system. Huts are moved and renamed, and when sections which have taken their name from the hut they're in move out into the permanent blocks later on, they take their hut name with them, and then the hut names are changed to avoid any confusion. So that's normally done by adding 10 to the number, so Hut 6 becomes Hut 16, Hut 8 becomes Hut 18. However, there's no Hut 13, unlucky number, so Hut 3 becomes Hut 23. Hut 23 is the highest numbered hut, but there are actually in total 25 huts built by the end of the war. A few of the huts are different from the others. They're actually built in brick with concrete roofs, and these are designed to house either code-breaking machinery or other kit that can't easily be moved and needs to be protected from possible bomb damage if the site's attacked. So we have Hut 11, the first of these buildings, built to house the bomb machines used to break the Enigma ciphers. Hut 11 is basically a concrete box filled with machinery that gives off immense amounts of heat and also sound. It's a very uncomfortable place to work and very quickly becomes dubbed the hellhole. As soon as possible, the bomb section moves out of Hut 11 into Hut 11A next door, which is a much better building. It's got a pitched roof, so the heat's got somewhere to go. It's got windows, and it's got ventilation fans installed as well to make it a bit more comfortable. And Hut 11 is basically abandoned. By about 1941, it's clear that the huts aren't going to be a sustainable solution to the continued expansion of the organisation. So the management start thinking about more permanent solutions and start making plans to build permanent office blocks. And the first of those is Block A, completed in August 1942. But again, the growth kind of outstrips their ability to put buildings up. Block A is originally intended to house 3 sections, military, air and naval section, but by the time it opens there's actually only space in it to house 2 of those teams, air section on the first floor, naval section on the ground floor. And within about a year, naval section takes over the whole of that building and Block B next door and one of the huts. And eventually there are about 1,000 staff in that section working across those 3 buildings. Eventually they have to build 8 blocks A to H, to house the whole organisation. And even then there's barely enough space. They're built to a standard Ministry of Works design with a central corridor and spurs radiating off it, and we sometimes refer to these as spider blocks. Now, some people claim that they're designed this way for security reasons, so the different parts of the building can be segregated from each other. I'm not convinced. It's just an efficient way to put up an office block, and there are lots of examples of these buildings across the country. And in fact, staff are warned the corridors are open spaces where anyone can circulate. They must be careful not to speak about secret matters outside their own offices.
You never went into anyone's room. You always shut the door behind you immediately. And of course, you didn't talk if you were with somebody. You didn't talk to them about anything to do with your work, ever.
Some staff were happy about the new accommodation, others sort of missed the traditional huts.
They've built this great enormous thing, yes. There was no more romance about it at all. And the place was very dark. There was the blackout,
Yeah.
and not very, very good illumination at all. The electric light was not very good, and we kept the windows pretty well closed as much as we could, so as not to let a peep come out.
Blocks also came with the labour-saving devices which were needed to handle the amount of paperwork that was going through this site. So in certain places where there's a constant flow of messages arriving from the teleprinter rooms and needing to be sent to the codebreaking sections, they install conveyor belts. These aren't the conveyor belts you might imagine from like a factory. These are 2 leather strips held in tension so they can carry a piece of paper along the ceilings of the corridors to wherever they're needed. The problem with these conveyors is they weren't reliable. Papers tended to fall off. You'd find them on the floors in the corridors and somebody would have to go and collect them. And this was an annoyance at best. At worst, it was quite a problem, especially where the conveyors ran through underground tunnels under the roads in some places. And a small member of staff had to be sent down into the dank tunnels to retrieve the papers that had dropped off. They also have pneumatic tube systems, so you put your message in a canister, you set the address on a ring around the canister, and then it whooshes off. And there's a network of tubes across the site, all leading into a central tube centre, where staff would take a canister, look at the address, and transfer it to the correct tube to carry it on to its destination. And similarly, several of the blocks had their own internal tube centres where, again, staff would transfer the canisters from one tube to another. This network of tubes meant staff could get a message from one side of the site to the other in just a couple of minutes without having to leave their offices. Really convenient. By 1945, that pre-war country estate had expanded enormously into a huge complex of buildings, really taking over the pre-war landscape. But that was necessary to absorb the expansion of what went from a small code-breaking agency to the world's first intelligence factory with almost 9,000 staff. Not all of these wartime huts and blocks survive, but some have been restored by the Bletchley Park Trust and are now open to the public.